Our next presenter is Paul Smerlick, Managing Director of Pantoro Limited. Paul holds a Bachelor of Mining Engineering degree from the University of South Australia. He has extensive experience in feasibility studies, project development and operations, and has both Australian and international experience. He's been MD of Pantoro since 2011, where he transitioned the company from explorer to producer status through the acquisition and development of the Nicholson's gold mine in 2014, has been instrumental in the acquisition and redevelopment of the Norseman Gold Project. Welcome, Paul.
Thanks very much, and thanks everyone for staying in here this morning. Some disclaimers there. If you've got a couple of hours to read, it'll be up on the ASX. Pantoro's had a really big year. It's had a really challenging year in bringing the Norseman Goldfield into production, and we achieved that milestone in December of 2022. But outside of that, we've had a huge amount of corporate activity going on. So first of all, for the first time in Norseman's operating history, which spans nearly 100 years, we've consolidated the ownership of the goldfield into a single owner in Pantoro. And I must thank Kevin Maloney for his trust in us and coming together with him to take this asset forward. We've built a brand new 1 million tonne per annum processing plant. We've refurbished an underground mine, a very high-grade underground mine, and we have started open pits, both virgin open pits and open pit cutbacks, processing through that plant. We're doing all of that with a really big asset base. We have nearly 5 million ounces of gold in resource, and in a short period between the middle of 2019 and 2021, we grew the reserve from 0 to essentially 1 million ounces of gold. We expect to see that growth continue as we move forward and as we go back into exploration phases when the mine's up and operating as it should be. So the 100% ownership of Norseman has been very important for a lot of investors. Joint ventures aren't universally loved, and I think it's been a great milestone to complete that merger at the end of June this year. Through that merger, we took the debt that we held and the other 50% owner, Tulla, held. We reduced it by over $11 million and consolidated into a single facility of $55 million Australian. So our debt level relative to most of the developers out there is low. We're building a position to be a significant producer in the mid-tier, so we're looking to produce 110,000 ounces per annum with a lot of scope to grow that production profile as we move forward. We have a great focused board and aligned management team, so the board is a combination of Pantoro's board and Tulla's board, and we've brought some good skills into the mix there. And amongst all of those corporate activities, we've simplified the operations by transitioning to care and maintenance at Halls Creek, which again is not a simple feat. We did that in a harvest period where it was a good profitable harvest period, which again can be a challenge. So just a quick overview on Norseman, and a lot of you would have seen this slide before. We hold the whole of the Norseman Goldfield, the historic goldfield, which has produced 6 million ounces of gold historically. It's the highest grade gold mine in Western Australia historically. And to date, we've put drilling into about 28% of the known resource areas as they stand. So we've really only scratched the surface to get that initial million ounce reserve, and you can expect to continue to see that growing. And as that grows, there will be opportunities to grow our production profile as well. As I've said, the operations are underway. We have that 1 million tonne per annum processing plant operating at nameplate capacity, and we have many opportunities to continue the growth in that mine life. So you can see from the grades there on the screen, we're amongst the highest grade open pit resources in Western Australia. We've taken 6 areas to being mine ready out of the some 26 resource areas that are already known within that tenure. We have a very simple strategy going into production. We have open pit mines operating at the Scotia Mining Centre. They will transition to a very strong underground over the coming years. We have a high-grade underground mine operating at the OK mine, and that's producing very high-grade results into a 1 million tonne per annum plant. We have another very big open pit, Gladstone, is about 1.5 kilometres long, about 100 metres deep, that will kick in as the Scotia pit starts to wind down. So the Norseman processing plant, you can see there that it's operating at and above nameplate capacity. It wasn't without its challenges. We've seen most of our components built during COVID, so we've seen mechanical failures that you would not normally expect. Thankfully, we had spares inventory that covered all of those failures, and we've been able to continue on relatively unaffected from a throughput point of view. The grade is continuing to increase, and I'll show you how that will increase very substantially over the next few months and get us up to the production rate that we're expecting. So first of all, the OK mine, you can see there's two different lodes that we're mining. The O2 lode, which is in yellow there, you can see that's had the majority of the historical mining on it previously. It's just under 500 metres deep. That had 4 levels flooded, needed rehabilitation. So we've fully rehabilitated that decline, it's fully dewatered. We've started developing the decline at the bottom of that deposit, and we'll be looking over the coming quarters to bring that back into production. At the same time, we've been mining the Star of Erin lode, which is the pewter colour there. That hasn't had any mining on it previously, and it was considered to be fairly narrow, and people weren't real sure what it was going to look like. We put a fair bit of drilling in there, as you can see in the feasibility study, and we saw a large number of those holes with visible gold coming through, and what we've developed has been truly inspiring in terms of grade. This is going to be one of the highest grade underground mines operating as we get into full development and production. So what you're looking at here is a long section of the Star of Erin lode that we've developed so far. You can see we've been able to access it from about a third of the way down the deposit, and from the top of the deposit. We've nearly linked those two areas together. We have roughly 20 cuts left to go, and that decline will be linked and have its own system there. And you can see that we have well over a year's production capitally developed there now. We just need to get into the remainder of those ore drives and get them developed and get the stoping moving. We have started stoping at the top of the deposit. As you can see, we'll very shortly start mining from the 253 level in a bottom-up sequence as well. So that production will continue to ramp up significantly. The grades that we're seeing here, hopefully you can read those grades out there in the crowd, have been quite phenomenal. So it's rare that we have a day that we don't see at least one of the veins that we're developing going over 100 grams a tonne. You can see there that there's multiple instances where we're at 200, 300, 400, 500 grams a tonne in the lode. It's a good, consistent ore body. It carries through some very, very high-grade pods that are carrying a lot more ounces than the mine plan currently reflects. So the plan that we're going forward at the moment is the pre-mining plan. We're seeing somewhere between 2 and 10 times the amount of gold on the levels that we've developed so far compared to what was expected. And for the stoping that we've started, you can see we have some very, very good rock here. We have some great stope control. That stope on the left-hand side, these are both mined with long holes. The one on the left-hand side is under 1 metre wide. The one in the middle is about 1.2, and you can see from the drilling as designed. So have some great conditions here. Moving on to the open pits now. We have 2 pits, the lower grade Green Lantern open pit, which we discovered in 2021, and the high grade Scotia open pit, which is a cutback that is a real driver to our production profile moving forward. Unfortunately, Scotia has had some delays in getting through that cutback, and when you're mining a cutback, every month that you don't mine that waste out, you have another month before you get to the ore. That has been one of the issues that we've worked through, but we're in that ore now, and I'll show you some more of that as we go through. So a very quick video on what we've done down at Scotia. You can see a substantial operating centre there, good stockpiles of ore on the ROM, very fast moving trucks. I wish they moved that fast in real life. Going through the Scotia pit, that Scotia pit you can see now is below the old open pits, and that's a very important factor. And I'll touch some more on that in a moment. And working through to the Green Lantern pit, which again has moved through the oxide and transitional zones into very wide ore zones, reliably producing ore for us for the process plant. So the open pit ramp up, as I say, Scotia has been behind. The contractor's had challenges with personnel turnover. It's hard to resource a new mine from scratch with zero personnel. There's been difficulties in getting adequate drills and drillers, but we've got through all of those issues now. We've got through that waste zone, through the old open pits and into the open floor. And so you can see from that diagram there, the majority of the floor has that high-grade ore in it now. We're mining that high grade out. I think importantly, we've drilled the pit on an 8 metre by 12.5 metre spacing for the next 25 metres vertical, and that drilling is showing that the ore is matching or better than the resource model that we have in place. So while there's been a ramp up in the production, you can see why we've had to get through that waste material. There's also a ramp up in the grade where the upper oxide areas were out of the main ore body and expected to be lower grade. That grade continues to ramp up as we go deeper. As we move through Scotia, it will transition to an underground mine. So in the next sort of 15 to 18 months, the southern and central, so the areas on the left-hand side of the screen there, will be completed from an open pit mining point of view. That will be our second underground mine working in and being prepared before the open pit to the north is finished. So the open pit will run through until 2026, and the underground mine will be ready at that stage to take that production. Now, the areas that are fully drilled here below the open pit are displaying about 2,500 ounces per vertical metre. So make no mistake, this will be a large underground mine in the fullness of time when we get it fully drilled out. It has real capacity to be operating at 500,000 tonnes per annum and above, and combined with the OK mine, you can see that we have real opportunity here to take the head grade from just above 3 grams a tonne up to 5 and 6 grams per tonne. And it's not difficult maths to translate that to 110,000 ounces going to 150 and 200,000 ounces. So we have two real opportunities to increase the production at Norseman once we get to that nameplate level that we have now. The first is to increase the grade, and that's part of the plan. The second is that we have the processing plant set up to cover that growth. Finally, now I just want to touch again on the exploration potential at Norseman. We're at the southern end of the Norseman to Aluna Greenstone Belt, the most prolific gold producing belt in Australia. I have a comparison there between Norseman and Kambalda. Most know about the growth that Kambalda has seen, particularly with the Invincible deposit, with millions and millions of ounces of gold added. Norseman has not had any real exploration drilling since Western Mining decided they were exiting the gold space back in the mid-1990s. So in the 25 years between them and Pantoro coming in and drilling those initial 6 deposit areas, it's effectively had no exploration. And I don't think there's another large-scale mining camp with such high-grade, prolific production historically that has been ignored for the last 2.5 to 3 decades. So we have a really big opportunity here to continue to grow this project as we move forward. And finally, just to be a little bit light, I wanted to show you guys what it's like to be a developer in the current market. I'm sure that there's a number of companies out there that can sympathise with me. So if you can imagine me with a pair of red trunks on, a slightly better physique than I have at the moment, and a little bit less hair, although most of my hair has fallen out, I'm the guy in red, along with some of the other developers. So we're all taking a lot of punches, but we're all bouncing up, and we're going to continue on. That guy, the referee there, I think is Timmy Lyons, one of our other great supporters, just checking I'm okay, going back in for the punch again. We will keep punching, and we will win. So thank you very much.